I have known Johnny Winters for about 17 years, and I have never ceased to be amazed at his talent. He's genuinely a funny, funny man. And he has his own television show syndicated around the country. And on April 6th, he will be up at the Sahara Tahoe. Would you welcome, please, Jonathan Winters. Hello, John.
Oh, gosh.
Pretty thrilling, huh?
Well, it is. I wore my new sweater. New for me. It was in a fire sale, and I grabbed it up. I'm not proud. A lot of my things are used. The shoes I bought those in the same sale. Not ashamed of that.
No.
It was a fire sale, and that's about all there is to that.
I gotta tell him what you did to me. You may not even remember this. Remember when Jack Parr was doing the old CBS morning show?
Right.
I think that's the first time you were really ever appeared on television, about 1955, 56. And we did it out at Grand Central Station. And we did two shows, one at 7 o'clock, which played in the East. And then at 8 o'clock, the Midwest and West would join the network. And then you had to go back and repeat the first hour of the show live for the West Coast again. And I'd met you the first time then. And I was back there filling in for Robert Q. Lewis on a daytime show. And you called me at a hotel once. You won't remember this at all.
There are a lot of things.
But I remember that you. I know there are many things you have done.
I don't remember.
That are a little dim.
My mind has failed me a number of times.
But on this particular thing, I was staying at a little cheap hotel back there, a real cheap hotel.
Yeah, that's right.
And I got this call one day, and it was from you, although I didn't know it at the time. And I was just finishing up the show. I said, Johnny Carson? I said, yes. He says, Mr. Weldon. I'm with J. Walter Thompson, advertising agency in here in New York. My ears, just the whole scalp went up. And he says, we are doing some commercials for the Buick Company. I remember it so well. And he says, we'd like you to be our spokesman. And, of course, there's $2,000 in it and a new Buick. And right then, $1 would have been, didn't have any money. And I knew that you knew that I had to go back to California. I had to come back and do a show I was doing, and I wouldn't be there. So I started to do, little disclaimers like, I'd love to do it, Mr. Weldon. And then you started getting nasty. Just a little bit. Well, if what do you mean you can't do it? That's the trouble with you California guys. You come into town, give you a job, you don't want to stay. And then you got really angry. And I'm practically dying. And I could have killed you at that time. But then he says, that's Johnny Winters. And I could see the Buick just flying away. And I'd already spent the $2,000 on the house, driving the car. You did little cutie things, didn't you?
Well, I still call guys up, and I still answer the phone as different people. I love to do that. One of my favorite stories, I love to, maybe, be an old person, and someone will say, hello, is Jonathan Winters there? And I'll say, no, the boy's in the basement. He's combing the kitty. Say, well, who's this? Well, just an old man who wanders around his house. And a lot of times you get odd reactions from people. Yeah, then. But one of my favorite stories was I've told it before, but it is a fun story. Several years ago, a number of years ago, I'd gone back to Ohio to see my mother and my stepfather and several relatives. And it was at Christmas time, and all of us were feeling no pain. My stepmother, my stepfather was certainly in rare form. And my mother had had a few, and I'd had several. And,
a drink of your choice.
Yes. A little touch of the grape. And like many people who imbibe in drinks, you get telephonitis and want to call the world. And so I wanted to call a friend of mine, and his name was Art Lytle, and he and I had gone to school together, and he was a funeral director. And so I called him, and I assumed a character, and I knew that he hadn't seen me or heard my voice in a long, long time. So I knew I was home free. And I called him up, and he owned and still does to this day, the Jackson Lytle Funeral Home in Springfield. And so I said, "Ho, is Mr. Arthur Lyle Jr. there?" And he said, "Yes, speaking." And I said, "Is this Arthur Lyle Jr.?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, this is Elwood P. Suggins, and I live out on the Lakewood Beach area. And my brother passed away here Sunday week, and I was wondering if you could do a job on it." And there was a long pause. And he said, "How long did you say he'd been dead?" I said, "Well, he passed away here Sunday week." And he said, "Good Lord, man, where have you got him?" And I said, "Well, most of our people are from Boise, and I didn't want them to have him come that far just to look at grass, you know. So what we did, we put him out there on the porch and set him up against a lattice. And cold spell set in, just kept him harder than a cart." However, the other day, sun come out, and he commenced to get fleshy. And his face dropped a little bit, and but I tell you, Mr. Lytle, even in death, there's humor. My eldest boy, Lamar Jean, twisted the deceased hand around and put a softball in it. Well, Lytle lit into me. He said, "Good heavens, I've never heard anything like this." So then of course, I broke in. I said, "Well, it's Johnny Winters," and he said a few things. Those are some of the little things that I...
What is the wildest thing you've ever done?
The wildest thing?
Yeah, that you remember. No, the reason I can say that is because we know each other.
Yeah.
We have spent some evenings together.
Oh, a number of good evenings.
When we had been talking to bushes at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember.
I guess, I'm trying to think the wildest thing I ever did. Well, I remember one story very well. I was sitting, this was back east. I was back in New York. You were talking about an advertising agency. Made me think about this. And telephone rang, and I went to the telephone, and I decided I would become a character, as I just mentioned. And a man said, "Hello, is Jonathan Winters there?" And I said, "That little funky man's on a little tractor, and he's out in the backyard cutting some grass." And so he said, "Who's this?" And I said, "This is Sam." "Who are you?" And he said, "Well, this is Mr. Cavendish, and I'm with Ben and Bowles or something, and I'd like to talk to Mr. Winters." He said, "You mean Johnny? Let me see if I can find Roundo." So, gee, you're going to see this guy at the other end of the phone. So I then shifted my voice. I said, "Hey, Roundo, come on in. There's a phone call for you. Get on it." So I said, "Hello, this is Jonathan Winters." And then the guy at the other end said, "Who was that I was talking to?" I said, "I'm on the phone, too." It's fun to do these little voices.
Yes.
Upset a few people.
Here's Ed to tell you about a great new opportunity to try one of the most remarkable vacuum cleaners ever made. We're back. My guests tonight are Joan Rivers, Judy Collins, and Johnny Winters. Your syndicated show has been renewed, I hear, and you're going to do something else on CBS?
Yeah,
we can mention that.
I hope we can.
Of course.
Because the networks, they can stand that, I think. I always know there's a little friction, you know, between the three, but what the heck, they're all making a lot of bread. I start doing my little show. It's a half hour, and it will start on CBS here in Los Angeles, 7:30 to 8, around the middle of April. I don't have the exact date. I hope it'll be around the middle of April. That's what they promised me that. And then I'm going back east to New York on Monday, and it'll be back there. It'll start. It's already in Philadelphia, in your hometown, Big Ed. And I was discharged, you know, in Philadelphia.
Very good.
Yeah.
Fellow Marine.
Fellow Marine.
That's right. You were in the Marines.
Corporal. He was a colonel.
Yes, that's right. I remember.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of difference there. Rarely do you guys mingle with the enlisted guys, right? Right, kid? Oh, well.
You didn't like the service, if I remember. We sat around talking about that several nights.
No, I got along fairly well in the service.
No.
I was always disturbed because I didn't know where I was. And unless you're an officer, you see, you're not clued in. And you're not given the top papers, which I felt I should have had at least 1 or 2 papers. And I kept asking questions, which is always trouble. Running up to a captain, or a colonel like yourself and saying, "Where are we, sir?" "None of your business. Move out." And I was always moving out. I was frightened a great deal of the time. I was frightened of the guys. I didn't understand a lot of them. They didn't understand me. I was kidding all the time, I'd be in grandma 1 minute. And, "Hi, honey,"
That would,
a lot of guys didn't understand.
That would shake up a barracks late at night,
I turned,
yes.
I'll never forget, to a full bird colonel, and did a voice on him, which I'll never forget. And I said, "Oh, sir, what is your name?"
Little sense of humor.
Don't do that in the Marines very often. So I was misunderstood a great deal of time. But I got out eventually. I knew I would. I had good feelings about that. And I got out. I spent 2.5 years, and then I wandered around aimlessly, looking for odd jobs. And being odd, I found a lot of odd work.
We were talking about the first thing people ever remember. Judy remembers at 2 years old or 3 and 4. Do you remember back that early when you were a kid? To 3 and 4 years?
Back to 1.
To 1?
I remember the beads on the ankle. Oh, remember the blue beads and the nurse putting them on it? No, that's pretty far back. No, I remember. I'd have to go along with the girls. I remember back about 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 3 or 4, and I was an only child, as you know, Johnny.
Yes,
but,
sir.
I didn't have any brothers or sisters, and that
Was it lonesome?
It was for a while. And then I realized that any goodies that would be handed over to me. But no, I was an unusual child. You can imagine.
Yes.
I was frightening old people a lot. Scaring them on the porch or something like that. And doing in class, I was a slow student. I was dumb.
That's what they used to call him. He's slow.
Teachers, yeah. The teachers would say the boy's slow. But I was, you can imagine, the little girl next to me, somebody like yourself, I go, and the girl would laugh and then point at me and say, "Johnny Winter's doing things, Johnny Winter's doing things." And I'd run out and jump through the window or something. But no, I was not a very good student. I had very poor concentration. And I was scared to death of the blackboard. There was something about to me, nothing today scares me like when the teacher would say, I remember we had Miss Metzger, who was a very unusual woman. I don't want to go into a long story there, but she was tough and could have made a sergeant easily. And I was frightened of her, and she knew that. And she took advantage of that, I felt. And she would say, "John Winters, talk like a man," to me a lot. That's unfair, but she sounded sometimes like very, very strong. And she said, "Go to the board." And I said, "Yes, Miss Metzger, I'll go to the board." And I was always turning to a student. And because I never knew where I was never prepared. And give me the answer, quick. And I'll never forget, there was a guy called Alden Sonander. There's an
Alden Sonander.
Alden Sonander turned to me and he said, "We learn by doing." And, I killed him at recess.
We learn by doing.
Learn by
There's always
doing.
one of those in
There's
every
always one
grade
of those guys.
school, yes.
And bless his heart, he was a very bright student. He was the brightest guy in our class. I always remember that. He was pages and pages ahead of everybody. And I was pages and pages behind everybody. Many days, I remember, it seemed like I was sick a great deal of the time because I wanted to be. And on warm, sunny days, I always had a cold. And I, Mother, I shouldn't go. And she'd grab me like this, and place me on the bicycle. Ow. Right to school. A lot of times I roller skated. That was fun. Remember roller skating?
Sure.
Yeah. Roller skated and rode the bicycle. Walked, ran.
Happy childhood, though.
Happy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Fairly happy.
Yeah.
I was broke a lot of, That's not fun when you're broke all the time.
That's right.
But I would lay for people in bushes and...
What were some of the jobs you did before you got into...
Some of the jobs I
Well,
did?
yeah, before you started... Started getting into show business.
Oh, some of the jobs I did? I worked in a theater. I was an usher in a theater.
So was I once, yeah.
Before I even got out of high school, I was an usher.
That's what I did.
And I worked in a place called the, I'm trying to think of the bar. Well, anyway, I remember it was a circular stage. And I was going around on that thing and doing little funnies, and I got something like $25 for the weekend and all I could drink and eat. And then I went into the service when I was 17, came out, and then I did a lot of things. One thing I always remember, I worked for the Coca-Cola bottling company. I was an inspector. And looking for dead mice and marbles. I sat on a little stool, with a neon light, and did this, and just watched bottles all day long. And then I picked apricots and picked potatoes, shucked corn. You probably did that in Nebraska.
Sure.
And I was a fry cook in the Yellowstone.
Yellowstone Park?
Oh, yeah, in the Yellowstone National Park. And worked 9 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning, cooking steaks and hamburgers and just little short order things.
You've done a lot of things.
For the what do they call them? I can never remember the guys. Park attendants.
Rangers.
Yes. Yeah. That kept people from the bears and things. But I did a lot of cooking. I think most of us have done odd,
weird things,
unusual jobs.
We have to do something here?
What are you doing here now?
Well, we're going to sell a little something.
Oh, good.
And then Dr. Stillman will come out and...
Dr. Stillman will come out and help us.